let's move on to Fox News, where you also had worked. What did you make of Bret Baier's interview with Kamala Harris last night? Did you think that he sounded like an advocate or a fair journalist?
I thought he was right down the middle. I thought it was very professional. He had very strong follow-up questions. What I liked, and I think it's important, is that he was clearly listening to her, because we had that moment in the interview where she said, in effect, you know what I'm talking about? And he goes, no, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's a great interviewer, someone who's processing the information, also listening, and then moving the interview forward. The most important thing to me, though, in this context that we're operating is that Fox News released the entire interview so that there was complete transparency for the network, complete accountability for the network, and that also held true for Vice President Kamala Harris, transparency and accountability. And I think that that was very smart in this context of what happened at CBS on 60 Minutes.
And so you think it's unfair, the criticism from some on the left who were saying that they think that he was effectively serving as a Trump advocate?
I don't see that. I think he asked very direct, very pointed questions. I didn't think they were overtly political in their tone. And he had great follow-ups. And if she wants to be the president of the United States and the commander-in-chief, aggressive questioning, direct questioning should be no problem for her.
All right, so let's talk about this press bill. Obviously, something very important to you. What do you think that Senator Cotton may be missing here?
What I would say to the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is where the legislation is stalled, is that I want them to understand that this legislation would protect small and independent digital newsrooms. And that's extremely important right now, because that's where we're seeing this explosion of diverse voices. I can tell you that smaller newsrooms, independent journalists cannot withstand the kind of financial and legal pressure that I have been facing for over 2 years. And by putting protections around these newsrooms, they're committing to a diversity of voices in this democracy. So I would like them to support this legislation and try and get it over the finish line in the recess session.
Now, my father, Floyd Abrams, wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal in support of the legislation. He's argued that the press has insufficient constitutional protections. Do you agree?
I do. I think that this legislation is historic. It's also legislation that we're so close to getting passed, and it's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to block the federal government from getting to the tech companies and getting phone records and also getting emails. And secondly, it's going to block the federal government and litigants from prying into a reporter's files and exposing confidential source information. And if you believe, as I do, that if you don't have a credible pledge of confidentiality to a source, then as an investigative journalist, your toolbox is effectively empty.
In another op-ed you wrote for the Free Press, you were pretty complimentary of Fox News and the way that they've stood behind you in this lawsuit. You ever consider going back there?
Wow, I was not expecting that question. What I will say is that Fox News has been totally stand-up in this litigation. They have had my back. They have given me a very, very strong defense. And I feel that advocating for the Press Act right now is not about the impact it may or may not have on my case. The courts will decide that, and I have complete respect for the courts. This is really personal for me. It's about advocating for the next generation of journalists. Dan, I'm 60 years old. I'm really in the final chapter of my career. And if I can make this part of my legacy, that the next generation of reporters will have greater protections and freedoms than I've had for the last 37 years, that to me is going to be a tremendous win.
So could Mediaite do a headline that says, Catherine Herridge, I'll go back to Fox?
I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm working independently right now. I've launched a newsletter, Catherine Herridge Reports. I'm doing investigations on X, and it's been really fulfilling for me, because what I'm seeing is that's where the growth audience is. And I'm also able to tie up some loose ends on some stories that I've wanted to tell for a very long time, but I was not able to.
Catherine Herridge, great to have you on the program. Thank you so much. We hope to have you back. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact fact-driven, unbiased coverage.